Hello and welcome back to Every Problem. This is Stewart Calculus 8th edition, section 1.1, problem number 38. This problem says find the domain and range and sketch the graph of the function h of x equals the square root of 4 minus x squared. So let's just rewrite the function again, and we'll have h of x equals the square root of 4 minus x squared. And we want the domain and the range. Well, luckily with the domain, we know that under any square root, we can't have a negative, right? And so here we do have a square root for a whole function, right? It's some expression, right? 4 minus x squared, all under a square root. So we have to figure out the domain under that square root. So 4 minus x squared, let's see. Well, if x goes as far as -2, right, then -2 squared is going to be equal to 4. And so then we would be left with a 4 minus 4 under the square root, and that would give us 0. If it equaled anything larger, like 3, then we'd have a 4 minus 9, we would get a -5. So we know that in the negative direction, -2 is as far as we can go for our domain. And because x is squared, and it'll always give us a positive value when you square it, that goes for the same in the positive direction. So x has to be between -2 and +2 in order to have some output for this function, in order for that number under the radical to stay positive. So the domain is going to be, we'll use closed brackets because it's okay to include these negatives, right? -2, and all the way up to +2. Again, closed brackets. Now the range, the range is basically what are the lows and highs of the graph? Well, the lowest this could ever be is 0, because we can't have any negative number as a result of a square root, right? So luckily, because of the square root, we know that it couldn't possibly be anything smaller than 0. So that's our low end of the range. Now the high end of the range, if we take a look at this x here, and we were to plug in 0 for x, then we would just end up with a root 4. And that would then just give us 2. So the range is going to be from 0 up to 2. And that's the first half of the question. The second half is to sketch the graph. So let's go ahead and sketch it. And luckily, this is graph paper built into here, so that should make the points pretty simple. And even better, it looks like it's four small squares per big square. So we'll have, oops, there we are, 1, 2, 3, 4. And so if we plug in -2 for the x value, we're going to get 0 for our y value. So -2 is 0. I'll draw yellow points for this, that way it can be a little bit more visible. Then if we were to plug in 1 for our x value, we would get 4 minus 1, which is 3, and that's under the square root, so it's around 1.7, I think, something like that. So -1 will get us about there, maybe. If we plugged in a 0, well, that would just be 4 minus 0, and the square root of 4 is 2, so that would get us 2. And luckily there is some symmetry to this. So on the other side, right, if we plugged in a 1, we would get that same square root of 3, so 1 roughly square root of 3 or so. And then 2 will also get us a 0, because 4 minus 2 squared is just 4 minus 4, and that's equal to 0. So the graph of this function looks just about like that, pretty much like a half circle. And that should be everything for problem 38.